Welcome back to the podcast. Marley and I were talking last week about this, so we decided to record an episode on this for you. We think it's a really important conversation because in the Instagram world and social media world, we are inundated with if you don't have a coach, what are you doing? If you don't have someone helping you, then you're not really running a business, right? Like we would like to give you kind of our take on that. And when we know we need a coach and when we know that we have it on our own for a bit. So we have some personal stories that we're going to share with you about our businesses and um, some examples of the way that we've walked our clients through. Do you need to hire somebody? Do you have it on your own? Have you just not implemented something that you know you need to implement and really repped it out for a length of time? So lately, Marley and I, individually and together, have had multiple conversations with people who have decided, I'm not going to have a coach. I feel like I do need a coach, but maybe I can't afford it. I know that I haven't done what I need to do. What's my next step? And so today we're just going to walk you through how we decide if we need to hire somebody, if we need a coach, and when that point is. So, Marley, I'm going to let you tell the story about, well, you first, because I think that's important, and then your client, or the client last week that was talking to you about a coach.
Yeah. So there's been 2 times in my business personally that I chose not to hire a coach. And one was when I was basically a brand new coach online. And I had just finished a few programs and I decided to hire a one-on-one coach because I really wanted that type of support next. That's what felt good to me. And when I finished with that one-on-one coach, I hadn't yet worked with clients. I hadn't yet even had a sales conversation. And I knew very quickly that, after 10 years of being self-employed, I knew what I was or wasn't doing. And I knew that I was I had learned what I needed to learn to get like my absolute foundational pieces of my business under me. And now it was time to get out of my own way and live in a little bit of self-trust and have a little bit of pressure on myself, self accountability to go out and do what I knew I needed to do and what I knew I had been avoiding, which was talking to people and actually selling on my content, not just, educating my audience. So when I made that decision, and like, I remember I felt that I didn't know how to sell at that time. And I remember asking you, Becca, can you just sit down with me and just come up with a short plan for me to feel like I can do this? Because I've been selling for 10 years in another space, but shifting online felt really different. And, it was just intimidating. So I remember we got on Zoom, we mapped out a quick plan, and I had signed 2 clients within 2 weeks of making that decision.
Yep.
And it was really like about making the decision and then having the confidence to just put myself out there and go for it. So that was really, some evidence that I needed that I have this, like that I can trust myself, that I can do this. I did know how to sell in this new arena. It just looked a little bit different, but at the same time, like sales are sales. It was just a different product really that I was selling. So within that next 90 days, I signed my 3rd client and I was so proud. Like, this was high ticket coaching. Like, I was so proud. I was so excited about what was possible now. And I remember my coach, my last coach, we had connected, we had chatted about coaching potentially. And I had told her I was in this season of self-trust and I was really just needing to prove to myself some things before I was going to be ready to hire another coach. Mm-hmm. And so she checked in on me after those 90 days and she said, like, how are you doing? And we got on a call, like a connection call. And I remember, like, it was really impactful for me because she, really made sure to like package this in love. And she basically called me out and called me up, I will say, because what she said to me was, hey, that's incredible. Like, you did what you said you were going to do. You're obviously an action taker. You're obviously serious about your business. You signed your first clients, which is incredible. You did it on your own without support.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, but I want to ask you a question. She said, is 3 clients in 90 days really where you thought you'd be by now? And I heard exactly what she was saying. Like, I knew that she was right. I knew what she was talking about. I got it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that was basically all I needed to hear to know that my next move was to light a fire under my butt and get some support and scare myself a little bit into some bigger action. And I really just needed to borrow her confidence. I needed to borrow somebody's confidence who had gone before me and could kind of pull me up a little faster than I could get there myself. And so that's why I made the decision to hire her as my next move,
Mm-hmm.
and in that moment. So I had set out to do what I needed to do. I was in action. I was accountable. I was inspired. I was moving. I was proud. And yet I wasn't where I wanted to be as quickly as I wanted to be there. So that's how I was able to make my decision. We're going to circle back on that in a bit because I want to share with you how we decide and how you can decide for yourself if it's time to hire a coach or not. That was just one of the reasons that I decided in that moment it was time.
Yeah.
And I remember it was so exciting to make that decision. It was scary, but it really excited me once I made the actual decision. It doesn't feel good to have to make a scary decision. But once the decision is made and you swipe that card and you sign up and you make it formal, there's a serious amount of relief that comes with having somebody in your corner.
I was just about to say my last coach that I hired, it was like nerve-wracking to go into it. And as soon as I hit the submit button, this, I can't even explain it, this unexplainable feeling of relief washed over me. And it's amazing because it's an incredible amount of money sometimes, right? Like it's more than you think that you could or should be spending sometimes investing in your business. And yet this feeling of relief is like, oh, okay, I have somebody who can literally walk me to what my goal is because I'm already doing the work. So it's not on them, but you have the relief knowing that you have them, they have your back, basically.
Yeah. And I know I spent the last 15, or not last, but just a few months ago, I wrapped up 15 months or so working with that coach. And you and I were both in a year-long mastermind.
Mhm.
We got so much out of it. It was such a great investment. We learned so much. We learned about our businesses. We learned skills. We learned how to lead other people. We learned what a mastermind feels like and looks like. We got to be in the space of other people just like us. Like, there was so much that I took from that experience. And when it wrapped up, you and I were in a very similar place of, okay, I'm actually feeling like I need another season of self-trust right now. I'm inspired. I'm in action. I'm moving. I know what I want to do. I actually want some time now to just rep out what I've learned and where I see myself going. And I say that speaking for both of us because I know we've had so many conversations around
Yeah.
that.
So, okay, let me ask you this question for those who are listening. When you think of a coach, Marley, like what do they do for you?
Oh, yeah. Well, there's three things that coaches do. Coaches will teach, they will coach, and they will mentor. There's three pieces to the puzzle. Now, not every coach is the same. Some coaches are there to teach. Some, we use the word coaches as like the term to encompass all of the above, but some are there to coach, some are there to teach, and some are there to mentor. Some do all three, but they do them in different types of containers based on where you're at. So I'll share with you what I see as the difference between the three. My courses that are self-paced are where I teach. So you show up, you get to hear the education, hear the how-to, the step-by-step to get X result. And that is me teaching those concepts and those strategies or those processes. I coach my clients when they come to me for the customized support on how to implement what they've learned in their own situation. So, for example, sold out offers, my course on how to create offers that sell, that your audience wants, that is a program where I will teach how to do those things. When I run a live version of it, where clients go through it live with me and getting feedback or getting support between what they're learning on how to implement, that's where I'm coaching them on the skills they're learning. So you can see that it's sometimes a bit of both, and it's a juggle. One-on-one clients, they're getting a lot of coaching. It's customized feedback. It's accountability. So a coach brings you all of those things, someone to ask you really powerful questions and help you learn how to lead yourself. A mentor, to me, when I'm mentoring my clients, that's more when I'm sharing my experiences, like how I think. Let me kind of peel back the curtain, like Wizard of Oz style, and show you what happens behind the scenes. How do I make decisions? Why do I make them that way? And so it's more of, it's less tangible, and it's more about like being in the essence of somebody that's just a little ahead of you or that thinks different than you. And so that you can really absorb the why. I'm a big why person. I want to know, why do you do it that way? Why do you make decisions like that? Why do you ask these kind of questions? And so mentorship is just a different type of coaching where it's less about guiding you and it's more about showing you what's possible, um, from your lens
It's
as a
like a
mentor.
peek behind the curtain. It's like
Yes.
they pull back the curtain a little bit and they're like, "Okay, this is what it looks like on the back end of my business. This is what a contract looks like for me." I mean, honestly, there have been so many times where I just wanna know what your schedule looks like. Like, just show me what your
Show me
schedule
yours.
looks like
Yeah.
because I'm not gonna mimic your schedule, but I just wanna know how it
Mhm.
works for you so that maybe I could look at my life and arrange it in a way that makes my business and my family and my schedule feel easier. Mentorship is so much fun because it's like you get to shadow somebody for a bit. It's almost like take your friend to work day.
Yeah, yeah. And when I think of mentorship, it sounds to me like surface level, it sounds like high level one-on-one coaching containers or masterminds, right? But honestly, I do a lot of mentorship in my master classes, in my workshops, because I like to run those. um, the topics that I generally choose are like, again, a peek behind the curtains, like how I do this.
Yeah.
Here's what's possible for you. And I love being able to show a bit of that in those containers as well to really help people think bigger, dream bigger, in whatever the area is that we're talking about that day. So
Yeah.
mentorship can happen in a lot of different ways. And I mean, that's a free container often or a very low ticket container.
Yeah, and I think what you and I have really learned over the last, I wanna say 2 years now, um, there is a time for strategy. There will be a time for strategy at different levels of business, right? It's not like, "I got my strategy down, I never need strategy again, let's move on to coaching and mentorship." There are times where you will need a coach and a strategy. You will need coaching through a strategy. Like there are so many different ways to look at this for your business. And so what has to happen though is that you recognize that. You know when you're at a level where a strategy is the next thing that you need, a new strategy or better for your level of business currently. Even your schedule sometimes. That's what I'm working through right now. I had
Yeah.
my schedule set and now it's like, "Oh my gosh. Okay, let's rearrange this because it's feeling really sticky these days." I needed help walking through that, right? So, there's a time for strategy, there's a time for coaching, there's a time for mentorship, and there will always be different levels of that as your business grows and as your business evolves. So, as a beginner coach, you can hire a one-on-one coach. So I think there's this big, I don't want to say like it's almost like an unspoken rule that when you're a beginner, you go into a group program, and when you're like making 10K months, then you can hire a one-on-one coach. And that is absolutely not true. Marley hired a one-on-one coach almost right out of the gate because she knew she needed the accountability, the support, the face-to-face contact to keep herself moving. I hired a one-on-one coach very early in my business to make sure that to make sure my finances were set up in a way that I was walking the walk. And I wasn't just preaching it to people, but like I was walking the walk. So just keep that in mind. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to start at a certain level. It is about you, about your business, where you are right now, and where you want to go. Okay, so Marley, tell us when, like, this is kind of how we walk ourselves through when we know it's time to hire a coach or not. So give us some examples of when you know it's time to hire another coach.
Yeah. So you mentioned like sometimes it's when you know you need strategy. Sometimes it's when you know you need some accountability, and sometimes it's when you know you just need to be in the environment of other people who are moving, whether that's a coach or like in a group setting. But there's a few factors that I know that I look for myself, but also that I've coached all my clients on when they're looking at making that next decision. So when you know you need a coach is when you're not moving at the pace that you tell yourself you want to be moving. When you feel uninspired or even burnt out, that's a sign you need some support, because there's an easier way. You're never burnt out because like this is just how it's going to be, right? And it can feel that way when you're in a burnout or when you're uninspired, when you're tired, when you're not working your business around your life or the life that you would like to live, the calendar, the schedule you would like to live, when you're not prioritizing what matters to you into your calendar, into your product suite, into the way you run your business. All of those things can be solved very simply. Like normally in a 20-minute call with clients, they're like, oh my gosh, like I just couldn't see that. And that's so fun to me. I love priority management and I love strategy. So those ones always like get me going. Another thing is just lacking creativity. Content is not hard. Okay. Now, that's a very big understatement in some senses of the term, but content can be a lot easier. Content is about messaging. When you know how to talk about what you do, content starts to feel easy, and you will start to feel like the gates have opened up about what's possible and what to say. And you won't know how you're going to possibly say all the things that you want to say when you're clear on what to say. So lacking creativity is a real sign you need some support, especially with your messaging. Or with your time and calendar, right? That's another big factor there. And if you're just not seeing the results that you thought you'd be seeing by now. And the biggest thing here is like when we talk about, okay, I'm not seeing results in the time I want to see those results. How long is a reasonable amount of time to wait, or to rep something out, or to implement a consistency strategy, or to try on something new, right? How long? I mean, a basic rule of thumb is 90 days, 60 to 90 days of really consistently doing what you told yourself you wanted to do. And if at the end of those 90 days, you're either not consistent because you're not able to maintain it, or you're just not seeing results and you are consistent, those are both indicators that you need somebody's eyes on your situation to help you figure out what is it that's in the way then. If you've done what you said you wanted to do for 90 days, or you just weren't capable of maintaining what you said you wanted to do, or repping it out, or following through, well, then now what? Like now we need to look at that as data and make some new decisions. That's simple. And then the last part of that is that 90 days is still not that long. 90 days is really not that long. And so I don't want to give you permission, to struggle for the next 6 to 9 months. And that's why I ask you to look at the next 60 to 90 days. Pick one thing that you can be focused on that will be an income producing activity, that will move the needle in your situation, right? Or at least bring you more joy into your situation. But 90 days isn't like going to all of a sudden change everything in your life. It just, something should be easier in 90 days. Something should feel better. Something should flow better. So that's why I say 60 to 90 days. And I don't say that like, oh my gosh, I'm such an old lady, like willy nilly, I was going to say. I say that like, pick a date, put it in your calendar and tell somebody, and have that person follow up with you. This is what I do for clients. This is what my coach did to me. And it felt so good. And it felt like a little bit of accountability to give you a little fire under your butt, to do what you said you were going to do. And so, 6 months, 9 months, a year working on something specific in your business is not unreasonable at all. I've been working on my calendar for a decade, but it's because it evolves. Like my kids get bigger, my life changes, sports are different in different times of the year. Like there's a lot to juggle when you're running a business and running a family. So for me, my family is a big priority of mine. And there's a lot of, making the business fit the lifestyle that I want. And so I give myself a lot of grace with that.
Yeah. Well, to close this out, we always hear, and this is true, I hate hearing it, honestly, when I'm in a spot where I don't want to hear it, but I'm going to say it anyway. If nothing changes, nothing changes, right? So we want to close this out with a challenge for you. So we want you to pick the one thing that you're going to focus on. To give you an example, I have been working on my messaging That is the one thing I've been working on for about 6 months now, maybe longer. Um, I have not stopped. I have not changed things.
I
I
want
have
to say you've been working on it for probably more like a year to 2 years. You've just had this new level of clarity in the last 6 months where you really ran with that clarity.
That's true. That's true. And I tweak a little tiny bit every time I get feedback from somebody. So, I started with 90 days, and to honestly, I think this was November, October, November, December. I worked really hard on staying consistent with the same message. And I was loud about it, and I talked about it all the time, and I came like, you I will die on this hill. You cannot convince me otherwise. Like, there's nothing you could say to pull me off of this message. And in January, I kept telling Marley, all of these people are DMing me. I've always had to go out and look for leads, right? I've always had to kind of convince them. Money management, people hate it. Let's be clear. They hate it. They don't think they need it. They
You're
think
intimidated.
they're intimidated. It's scary. Sometimes it's embarrassing for them. But I repped that out for 90 days, not even on purpose. It was just like, I'm running with this. I'm going to go with it. January, my business took off from out from under me. It was like, hang on a second. I'm not prepared for this. So I just want you to know we don't give you this challenge because this is like what everybody says. We have practiced this over and over. When we get stuck, when we feel like something's not working, we pick one thing and we stay accountable to each other for 90 days, and almost always something changes. Even if it's just noticing that more people are watching you, more people are snooping around, more people are liking and commenting, that is an indication that something is working and we get to stick with it now. 90 days was not just quite not enough to get them moving all the way in your direction. So we're going to finish this out with a challenge. We want you to pick the thing, whatever it is. Is it messaging? Is it finances? Is it, I don't know, like what is it that you know you need to be consistent with? Pick a date, 90 days from the date that you're going to start. And we want you to either tag us in your stories or you can privately message us. So, what we are going to do is put your 90 days date on our calendars, and we are going to follow up with you and make sure that you repped out 90 days. And then we want to hear what happened. What happened? Are you still stuck, or are things starting to roll? And do you feel like maybe you need a strategy or you need a coach, or you feel like you are in a season where you got this, you just needed to rep some things out? So we want you to tag us or privately message us. Let us be your accountability partners, because that is the only way this works, is when you have someone holding you accountable, lighting a fire under your tails. We know you can do this. We believe in you. We know it works. So, this is how you're going to have external accountability so you can stay honest with yourself and what's working.